This 13-year-old horror game is still regarded one of the most terrifying games of all time. Is that still true? So I'm gonna answer that question right now. Amnesia: The Dark Descent was created and birthed by Frictional Games September 8th, 2010, which was actually 4 days after my birthday. Just so you know. They're now not so indie, and they go on to make a handful of Amnesia games. The first one was an expansion called Justine, and the other one, A Machine for Pigs, which technically was made by The Chinese Room, which was supposed to be a mod, but ended up being picked up by Frictional Games and published. And then 2020, they had Rebirth, and then in 2023, this year, The Bunker. You're a man that goes by the name of
Daniel. My name is Daniel. I live in London. What have I done? This is crazy.
He starts his journey by losing consciousness and waking up with no memory, hence amnesia. You do get some hints. You open the door, you find a tinderbox, and you start moseying on. As you make your way down the halls, you're disoriented, you're wobbly, and you are definitely in a haunted castle. You go on to find a note to yourself from yourself. You drank an amnesia potion on purpose, and you note that you should find comfort in that. What? You give yourself the objective to go to the basement and kill your boss. And don't worry that he's old, weak, and feeble, and so killing him should be a cinch. And since this is you telling you what to do, you should listen to yourself, I guess. Oh, and by the way, there's a shadow following you all the time, trying to take over your mind.
A shadow is following you. It's a living nightmare, breaking down reality.
Frictional Games also suggests that you just don't try to beat the game, but to experience it. So sink in, slap some headphones on, hunker down, in the dark, alone, and become Daniel. Bon appetit. Alright, let's just give you the meat and potatoes right now. Is Amnesia scary? Well, yes, it is scary. And it's because of a variety of things. You got immersion, the pace, the environment, the ambiance, the creatures, the story, the effects, the power of suggestion, using your mind against you, and the subtleties. A lot of games can scare you. I mean, jump scares, gore, really disturbing material. All those things are good elements, and I think they're fun. Frictional Games decided to go with the more psychological horror approach. And one of my favorites was they kind of guide you into this room. This is when I pooped my pants the first time, and I ran out. Because I was curious there might be something interesting in there, so I ran in there and used my tinderbox for the first time. Ugh, it's cold down here. It's probably from all the ghosts. Anyways, so this is when they introduced some of the mechanics. If you open up your inventory screen, you see a heart and a brain, and as you may have guessed, the brain indicates your sanity. Your sanity decreases the longer you stand in the dark and the more you see unsettling events, kind of like when that door swung open. Like I said before, they're going with the psychological approach, and so there's not a lot going on. There's a lot of tension, there's a lot of sounds. I mean, you're constantly bombarded with it. So you end up finding a lantern, and this you need oil, and you just want to keep using it, but at the same time you're feeling every minute that goes by, you're like, when am I gonna get another refill? So eventually you go into this hall, and then you go towards the left, you kind of look around, and you look into this doorway, and you just feel like something is behind you. And that is when you see your first gatherer. And then it vanishes. Fucking scary as shit, bro. Now after that encounter, you're really on edge. You don't want to go anywhere. So the pacing was perfect. They let the tension rise to freaking right about to just kill you, and then they give you the payoff. Another few things is that the chase scenes are crazy. They're intense. And you're just like, get through the door, get through the door. Yeah. Also, the creatures are very strong and very fast. You can't outrun them in a straight, narrow hallway. Like, you have to get around things, maybe jump on something, or just sneak around them. You can't fight them. I tried throwing containers at them. It doesn't work. So that's pretty much it as far as the scary stuff goes. And there's a reason why this is a classic and why people think this is the most terrifying game of all time. There are some things that make it not scary. And so let's go ahead and get into why it's not scary. Alright, this game is scary, no doubt about it. 2010, it was probably just making everybody poop their pants. But to me, there are some things that don't make it scary. And the things are, you know, graphics, sound design, bugs. As far as the graphics go, obviously they had some limitations there with technology, budget, personnel. It was stylized and not ultra realistic, which is fine. I think it was effective. The environment was good, well designed, and helped with the immersion and the fear factor, but the textures a little dated and pulled some of the scariness away. The NPCs and the gatherers aren't great. They're smooth and not terrible, but if you were to see those gatherers too often, they would lose their luster real fast. And so they did a really good job of bringing them in sparingly, not only to build tension, but also to keep them effective. Same with the NPCs. There's only 2 NPCs. They tend to be kind of far away, so you can't see a lot of the details. And when they're talking, they're not moving their mouth or anything. They're not using any animations to have some expression when you interact with them. Either they'll hide the animation with a blank screen. Like all horror games, the more you go along, the more you get used to their style and what they're going to do to you. But with their gameplay loop is very limited. And of course, they start off really small and short, and then they build up, ramp up. As you go along, it becomes more disturbing, but less scary as far as knowing what's going to happen or knowing what you need to do. When things become predictable in horror movies, things become less scary. Pretty straightforward. As far as the bugs go, it was pretty lock solid, but there are about 4 or 5 times where I fell through the map. Few of the times I was locked in, elbow deep in fear, and fall through the map. And I know that they're indie games. I know that their code can never be perfect, and so I'm okay with it. But the fact is it did detach me from that moment. All right, so again, it was scary, and there's a lot of these little things that made it less scary. Now on to the verdict. So my final thoughts is, yes, the game is scary, and I think it does deserve to be in that category or in the discussion of the scariest games of all time. At least the games you need to play if you're into horror, no matter what. Overall, a really solid game, front to back. The story is all about it. The lore is fleshed out, characters really good, a lot of good voice acting.
Is that of a prison warden. This is where criminals are locked up.
The psychological horror, well done. The environments, well done. The style, well done. Very creative with what they had. So I would slap the classic label to it. When you see games today like Visage, you could tell they were influenced by it. And yeah, it's really good. Classic. I love getting into the story of games, even behind the scenes. What was the dev story? What did they have to go through to make this game? I love doing that. I think it humanizes the whole thing and gives you a better overall perspective of the game. So if you're into that kind of stuff too, watch this video. Tell me what you think.